had a face-to-face encounter with one of Vancouver's most dangerous residents last night, the Coyote. Heard I was out sitting in the park with a pal, having a fun time, just talking about our feelings. Just two men at 3 a.m. sitting on a basketball court, talking about our feelings like we're in the end of an indie movie that's about to win every award. Talking about everything and nothing. We're breaking down the boundaries of traditional masculinity by sharing with each other. And we're sharing deep and intimate details with each other. My friend and I were sitting out here on this basketball court at 3 a.m. We're telling each other things like which direction we wipe our butts in. He was away from the balls. I was side to side. And that's just, that's a personal choice that I've made. Is I wipe in a circular motion, sort of. It's not important. That's not important. But what I'm trying to say is that we were sharing and we were having some sort of deep and emotional moment with each other, and I think that's beautiful. You guys get it. We're sort of progressive bays in that way. But we're sitting out there in the basketball court and we're sharing our feelings. And we hear a growling noise coming from down the alley. And so I get up right away and I assess the situation. That's step one when you come face to face with dangerous wildlife, is you want to assess the situation. And I got up and I assessed that I heard angry guttural and some growling and snarling and awful, dangerous wildlife noises. And I couldn't see what it was. So step one is you want to assess the situation. And I assessed there was a possibly dangerous, but certainly angry and aggressive animal in the night that I could not see. So step two was I started running towards the sound as quickly as I could, because that's what you want to do. Whenever you come across any sort of wildlife that's agitated, it's growling, it's maybe, it's got its teeth out, it's snapping, it's being threatening, that means it wants you to come towards it. And so I'm, just running as quick as I can, and I'm shouting as I'm doing it, don't fill up on whatever you're eating, Coyote. More dinner is coming. And I'm running towards it. And then I burst through this stand of trees, and there it is, the Coyote. Now, this was a very large coyote. This thing, I'm talking, it was large, and it also looked wily. It looked like it had its wits about it. It looked like a bit of a rogue coyote. And I saw this thing, and I was like, well, you've killed what appears to be a large man. There was a dead man on the ground. Big man. And this coyote looked at me and looked up at me, and it said, "You're next," in perfect English. And that's always disconcerting when a woodland scavenger speaks to you in perfectly unaccented Canadian English. That's always going to kind of put you off your game. So I hesitated for a moment. And in that moment, Coyote leaped towards me. And then my training kicked in. So I karate chopped this thing right in the head. And just, ha! And that killed it instantly. It was, and then unfortunately, my buddy, if you remember, we were talking about wiping techniques, he ran through the trees and at that very moment, pulling up his pants, and he was like, "Oh, I apologize. I had to take a quick poop break." And I was like, "How'd you wipe?" And he's like, "I tried side to side, and you know what? Pretty good." And I was like, "Pretty good, right? Pretty good." And he ran into the clearing. there's me, there's a dead coyote, there's a dead man. And the coyote did not look large enough to have killed the man. And my friend said that. That was he goes, "Hey, who killed that guy?" And I said, "Well, the coyote." And he goes, "That's a Pomeranian." And you know that moment when you've karate chopped a coyote to death after coming across it and the body of a dead man, and then your friend tells you that it's not actually a coyote, it's a Pomeranian. You know that moment that we've all had? Embarrassing. It's embarrassing, and so I did kind of what I always do in an embarrassing situation. I started to put blame on others. I was like, well, why was the Pomeranian standing over the dead guy? And just as I said that, the dead guy in the ground went, and I was like, oh, ooh. Sir, are you okay? And he said, please, my EpiPen, my service dog has it. And I went, oh. And then I looked over at the Pomeranian I'd karate chopped thinking it was a vicious coyote. And it was wearing a service dog vest, which I should have spotted. That's one of those things. I thought, okay, in my defense, the service dog vest just said, do not pet me. It didn't say, don't karate chop me in the head. So how was I supposed to know? I wasn't going to pet the vicious coyote. I didn't realize it was a service dog vest for a Pomeranian. I thought it was a vest that they put on wild coyotes in the city to ensure that people who are not familiar with how to deal with wildlife didn't pet them and habituate them further with humans. That was what I assumed. And I think we can all agree that that is an assumption that makes sense and that I shouldn't be blamed for karate chopping this guy's service dog in the head. And I tried to say that to this guy, and he was unresponsive. Because he was still, I forgot I was supposed to give him the EpiPen. And I was like, oh shit, right. He had passed out again. I went and grabbed the EpiPen off the Pomeranian. And when you're looting a dead Pomeranian service dog vest, that's not the time when you want the police to show up, but they did. And they roll in and they start saying all kinds of things like, wow, what's happening? You're under arrest. Get back. Put down the dead Pomeranian, sir. And it's in moments like that where I'm like, you know what? They're right. Defund the police. If you had been here sooner, then maybe I wouldn't have accidentally karate chopped this Pomeranian thinking it was a vicious coyote. If you guys got here quicker, then I wouldn't have to defend the streets like some sort of coyote-crushing Batman. I wouldn't have to take these things on myself. I could just trust that I could hear coyote growling, which turns out to be service dog, cries for help in the distance, and I could just call 911. I wouldn't have to go out and investigate myself like I'm a white dude in a horror movie. I could just leave that to the trained professionals, but no. The police are too busy to get there before you karate chop a Pomeranian. They just like to show up after you've karate chopped a Pomeranian to punish you for it. And write to your congressman, because that's the only way I see this system changing. And unfortunately, this is the system functioning as it is intended to right now. And unless we can all accept that fact that nothing is broken about this system, it is designed purposefully to victimize people who rush into animal encounters and accidentally karate chop working dogs and don't. I'm sorry, I get very emotional when I get talking about politics. But yeah, they show up and they say drop the Pomeranian, so I do, and it makes a little squeaky dog noise as it hits the ground. And then, but I've still got the needle in my hand, and the cops are like, he's got a gun or he's got a knife, he's got a needle. And so they, they pull their guns and they start firing on me. And at this point, I'm diving behind the guy who's lying on the ground because I'm still trying to give this guy his EpiPen because, I could see he's got a sesame bagel in his hand. So I'm like, oh, this guy's got an allergy, and it's. So I'm diving behind him to hit him with his EpiPen, and of course, as I dive behind him, the police are still trying to shoot me, and they wind up putting about 37 rounds in this guy. And do you know what the best way to not face repercussions for karate chopping a Pomeranian in the brain pan because you thought it was a vicious coyote? Witness the police shoot a man in the middle of an allergic reaction 37 times. You'll be amazed how quickly they are willing to let bygones be bygones about that Pomeranian. So what we did, because now, me and the police are kind of in this together, which happens sometimes, your interests align. And so what we did is we kind of rubbed their service weapons all over the Pomeranian's paws to get his paw prints on them. And then we just sort of left the Pomeranian and the owner there, and we all left. And the news is saying that it is possibly some sort of epidemic of service animals attacking their owners with handguns. What the news has sort of come out with the narrative is that service animals are getting tired of serving. They would like to be served now. They would like to change things up. The sort of socioeconomic mobility of service animals is limited. So they have started stealing handguns off of cops because cops, they don't pay attention to service dogs. It's kind of the perfect disguise. They steal service weapons off the police. They take them. They're using them to kill their owners. So service dogs are illegal now in Vancouver. That's been like a good thing that's come out of this, I think. Unless you need a service dog, then it's not a good thing at all, actually. Then it's actually quite bad. But, yeah, it all kind of turned out okay for me. Aside from, obviously, that is an opportunity, right? To know any information is power, knowledge is power. And I know something now that could bring down the entire system. And so I've started going and meeting with service dogs. And I had to learn a little bit of sign language, had to learn some commands, but I've managed to communicate with them completely without incident. So now what I've been doing is I've been organizing service dogs in order to fulfill this sort of narrative that the media has been pushing as a result of the cover-up that me and these police officers perpetrated. So it's essentially they need, in order for this to work, this wave of service dog on service dog needer violence needs to materialize. And so they need a double agent in the service dog community to rile them up, to make sure that this materializes, this civil unrest. So what I've done is I went down to a furry convention and I stole a dog suit off someone, one of the ones that doesn't have an attached massive penis. And I because this is more of a professional setting and less of a fun kind of one. So I didn't feel like the giant attached penis to the furry dog suit was necessary. So I grabbed one of those off one of those furry fellas, and actually same hotel, just a different conference center. Went on over to the service dog meetings, and I pretty inspiring speech. You guys wouldn't get much out of it because it was just like bark, 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 ruff, 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 and grrr, and all the dogs wagged their tails in agreement. And I was like, yes, we will march on Washington. And honestly, here's the tough thing: is that I got into this sort of service dog movement with the intention of being a double agent, with the intention of steering them towards our ends, me and the powers that be. But then I quickly realized I could steer this just towards my end. I could take over the world with these service dogs, with this army of service dogs, highly intelligent, highly trained, emotionally aware, working dogs. That's a strong force if you convert them to a military and subterfuge espionage force, especially when the powers that be think that you're working for them. So I became a triple agent for the service dogs, and we're going to take over America. And the only thing we're going to change is we're going to make it so that the culturally accepted way to wipe your butt is side to side. Because I'm tired of people looking at me funny when I tell them that that's how I wipe my butt, is side to side. And so, yeah, the brave new world is coming. And it is coming to you by dog sled.